Can a half shaft that has been broken into two sections still be spliced together? In Pakistan, this is definitely possible. It only takes one section of the scrapped shaft to simply splice together. The half shaft can be restored to normal use in a short time. The unfortunate owner of the garbage truck in Peshawar, not only is the shaft broken, but there is no spare part at all. In order not to delay the subsequent use, the owner went directly to their repair shop to ask the master to see if it can be repaired. Since the broken position is just at the edge of the flower sword groove, it is impossible to repair it without affecting the use. Welding with welding rods will definitely not meet the hardness requirements, so the master is going to splice the scrapped shaft. In this way, even if drilling is performed, the length will not be shortened. After the master simply determined the repair plan, the yuan gong needs to be connected in the middle of the two shafts. First, the tempering surface must be cut to be smooth. The scrapped shaft is connected by drilling. The flange end shaft must be cut and cut. The main purpose is to process it into a splicing boss. The two need to be balanced under the premise that the cutting amount is equal to half of the diameter. After the data of the boss reaches the processing requirements, it is necessary to use a plate to remove the rough characters of the surface cutting to avoid the subsequent joint not being smooth enough. Then, the surface of the boss is cut into a row and outer thread. This can not only improve the strength of the splicing, it can make the flange and the scrapped shaft concentric and coaxial, and the concentricity of the body will not change. Then, the burrs on the surface are also polished with a wrong knife. There will be no resistance due to the data when rotating. At this time, the outer diameter of the boss on the flange is fixed. When it is necessary to completely embed and splice with the scrapped shaft, the smooth end face must be opened with a twist drill. The data of the outer diameter of the boss at the flange end is the processing reference. The drill bit is constantly replaced for hole expansion because the drill bit size is the data of the number. When adjusting the hole guard, the master must first use a caliper to measure the difference between the shoulders of the two to avoid excessive cutting of the hole cutter and increase the amount of ore. After the master's processing based on his feeling, in order to connect the scrapped shaft with the boss, the inner wall of the guard must also be processed with a consistent thread. However, that time is not conducive to the master's observation. The processing efficiency is not slow at all. After the master cuts the thread on one end of the shaft, the two holes can be connected. The hole twisting process is also very smooth. After simply checking the concentricity and there is no error, the groove is quickly welded with welding rods to prevent the shaft with threaded connection from loosening. After the master's very skilled welding operation, the strength must have reached the use requirements. In the case of the overall outer diameter of the shaft is too large, the master must first use the lathe tool to cut the shaft and the welding bar surface to process it. In this way, the uneven welding bar can be covered. The transition between the spliced shaft and the flange is more natural because the other end needs to be embedded in the broken flower sword shaft. The second processing is to produce the spliced convex part. This is also the key to restore the length of this half shaft. After the master polishes the hair produced by cutting, the work before the flange splicing is completed. At this time, the broken spline shaft needs to be spliced. Since the length and outer diameter of the spliced convex part have been determined and there are ready-made data, the center of the spline shaft can be drilled for this kind of half shaft hole docking. We usually change the splicing method of both ends. This is also the reason why the spliced shaft does not have threads. The data of the two need to be perfectly matched. Before adjusting with the inner hole cutter, it is necessary to hold the card to perform a detailed match to avoid gaps after docking. After confirming that it is correct, the hole position will be cut and enlarged again to make the inner wall smoother. The whole diameter of the flower sword shaft can also be consistent with the protruding column. The data processed by the master is very accurate. In order to reduce the difficulty of splicing, Fu must first apply a certain amount of lubricating oil to avoid the strong downward pressure of the hydraulic press, which will directly crack the flower sword shaft. In order to make the three-section spliced half shaft a hole, the groove left must be welded to the same outer diameter of the shaft rod through the high-end Giant 07 welding rod. Because the height of the weld scar cannot be accurate, the remaining scraps must be removed by the lathe tool until there is no trace on the surface. Although the half shaft has been spliced, the head still needs to be fixed with a nut. Fu must follow the original data. A new external thread was processed to avoid affecting the fixation of the tractor half shaft. For external threads with this pitch, the father used a file to polish it to prevent Rome from getting stuck when tightening. This tractor half shaft that was close to being scrapped was reborn in the hands of the master. What do you think of the Glass's uncle's craftsmanship?